O Erd Tree, you shall burn, burn for the sake of the new Lord.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Iron Stark, and today I'll be showcasing a build centered around the Broadsword, a straight sword in Elden Ring that has the best strength scaling in class when set to the heavy affinity and the Ash of War square off, the most subtly OP weapon skill in the game. To begin, the Broadsword moveset is straightforward, complete, and comprehensive. It shares the same light attacks as other straight swords and has a heavy attack that has a horizontal slash that combos nicely into the light attack. What makes straight swords such a great weapon class as a whole, in my opinion, is that no attack is very risky to use and is very user-friendly. I would say one drawback that the broadsword in particular has is while it has great AR for a straight sword, it's lacking in range, hence why I would advise using its jump attack when you feel that you need to close the distance. As previously mentioned, the broadsword has the highest scaling with the heavy affinity of all straight swords in Elden Ring, getting an A scaling in strength with a scaling value of 148, so this is a strength build. But what really makes this weapon such a powerhouse is the weapon skill I ran with the broadsword. The only Ash of War I used with this build was Square Off, the stance weapon skill unique to the straight sword class. Upon using this weapon skill, the player enters a readied stance, from which they have two options. The light attack version performs a fast upward slash that deals 30 stance damage, or the heavy attack version, which performs a lunging thrust that deals 40 stance damage. To put in perspective how good that is, most bosses in Elden Ring have either 80 to 120 stance health, meaning this weapon skill can stance break them in 2 to 4 hits. The heavy attack version of Square Off deals more stance damage than Giant Hunt or Lion's Claw on a Colossal Sword, both of which are considered Unga Bunga staples by the Elden Ring community. Considering one thing that the straight sword moveset is lacking in is stance damage, this weapon skill is a godsend. It may not look flashy, but when Square Off is this efficient, it doesn't have to be, it just puts work in. The one offensive incantation this build uses on occasion is Black Flame Blade, a weapon buff where the player's weapon is engulfed in black flame for 7 seconds, 9.5 seconds if using the Old Lord's Talisman. When landing a hit with a weapon buffed by Black Flame Blade, the black flame will burn on enemies for 2 seconds, dealing 20 damage plus 20 more damage for every 1000 HP a boss has, making it extremely effective against bosses with big health pools. Because Black Flame Blade's duration is pretty short, it works best when casting after dodging an attack, sprinting, or jumping, as it makes its already fast cast even faster. I've seen a lot of naysayers regarding this incantation, but believe me when I say percent-based damage that completely bypasses enemy damage negation is really good, and while I would love to see Black Flame Blade's duration get buffed, it is still very powerful as is. The primary stats for this build are 80 strength for weapon scaling, 33 faith for buffs, 18 mind for frequent weapon skill use and occasional use of Black Flame Blade, and 30 endurance, because being able to attack without worrying about managing stamina too strictly is fantastic. The armor for this build is something of an improved version of the Raging Wolf set, which was already peak drip on its own. I still have the Raging Wolf helm and chest piece, but I've substituted the gauntlets and greaves for Viraksasha gauntlets for a slight damage boost of 2%, and the Greaves of Solitude to push this armor's poise above 51. As for talismans, I built them around getting the most out of utilizing Square Off as the centerpiece of this build. To begin, Shard of Alexander increases the power of Square Off by 15%. This can also be stacked multiplicatively with Rellana's Cameo, which increases the power of stance skills like Square Off by another 45% if held for at least a second. The idea of buffing Square Off's damage by roughly 67% is pretty insane, although the drawback is 1 second in Elden Ring's combat can be an eternity with how aggressive bosses can be. So this setup also uses the Blade of Mercy, which increases attack power by 20% for 20 seconds after inflicting a critical attack. Using Square Off, you're going to be landing critical attacks pretty often, but it is worth noting the effects of Rellana's Cameo and Blade of Mercy don't seem to be compatible with one another. Like, I've landed a critical hit before and then held the stance for at least a second, trying to do an ultra powerful Mega Square Off, which in theory would do over 85% more damage if it worked, but it just doesn't. The final talisman is usually a toss-up between the two-handed sword talisman to increase the power of two-handed light and heavy attacks by 15%, the axe talisman to increase the power of charged heavy attacks by 10%, the Old Lord's talisman to extend the duration of spell buffs, or the two-headed turtle talisman, which greatly increases stamina regen. For buffs, this runs Golden Vow and Howl of Shabriri to increase attack power by 15% and 25% respectively, which stack multiplicatively. Nothing really reinventing the wheel there, just a thirst for power. As for Physick, this build utilizes the Stone Barbed Cracked tier for increased stance damage for 30 seconds, and the Spiked Cracked tier to increase charged heavy attack power by 15%. The Spiked Cracked tier could have been replaced with something more useful, like the Green Burst Crystal tier, mainly because Square Off does so much stance damage and is faster than the Broadsword's charged heavy attacks. All footage was captured during the 1.16 patch and in New Game Plus. This build served as a lesson that some of the best builds can be really simple and made very powerful with a little bit of game knowledge, and as always, enjoy the showcase.
Thou art of passing skill. Warrior blood must truly run in thy veins. Tarnished. Morg win. depths of your